How have some of the issues in the past few days changed, if at all, the way you think about utilities in moments like this?
It's a great question. We generally look at utilities as being a necessary thing for us, for our economy and our global infrastructure. And the change is whether or not there's support behind the scenes for these and how we measure ourselves and measure the economy based on the ability to withstand pressure such as this. And I think Texas is really going to be a case point in the case study to watch what happens.
Our own Bloomberg's Alex Steele was on here and really killing it when she's talking about this highlights the lack of investment, how far behind the infrastructure has gotten to where it can't handle higher loads, of course, when we need them. Is this a broader issue here where this makes us rethink investing and issuing more debt from the utility sector so that we're prepared?
I think that's a really good point. When I look at this, I'm observing, what are the cost-benefit analyses that must be undertaken to ensure that something like this incident can be weathered as well as it can possibly be. And, the question is, do you have to change how deep you bury pipes in the ground? Do you have to change this sort of precautions you take to manage a storm such as this, which happens infrequently, but they do happen in Texas, and they're built more to weather the challenges during the summer months. So the cost-benefit analysis may be a key, and if you're going to issue more debt, you're going to affect the underlying credit vulnerability of the issuers, and that could raise borrowing costs in the long run and definitely affect the ratings.
Interesting. Let's talk generally about those borrowing costs. We have a great chart to pull up of the Muni to Treasury ratios. Typically, 100% looks like there's great value in munis. You get to that ratio of 80% and it looks full. We're at 50%. There is so much money flooding into munis. Are they still attractive on a relative basis?
If you're looking from an historical perspective, it's tough to say that there's attractiveness here. They're definitely overbought. You look at about a year ago, they were at 365% in 10 years during the middle of the COVID crisis. So the fact that we're at 50% now kind of speaks to the absolute demand that is out there. I think mutual funds had the largest inflows ever last week. And so that speaks to the fact that people still want this. And at some point, emotions and those sort of things overtake investing soundness. That will reverse course at some point, and that's when I want to be on the other side of that trade for sure.
How do you handle higher rates that we see in treasuries and the inevitability that muni yields follow as well?
I think you have to be cautious about where you put your money on the curve. Generally, when you're looking at a higher rate environment, you want to go with shorter duration, kind of cushion some of the impact of that as well. And then there's the natural rotation out of the asset class that will happen during a time of crisis. Usually the crisis has to be in the middle of occurring for that to happen. But those are two of the more common things. Bring your duration down, come down the curve, and also bring your credit quality. It's a definitive point to be made.
Finally, Chris, we hear that we could get stimulus as soon as next week. How does that impact the way you're thinking about local governments?
I think that's also something that plays in this whole Texas situation. What sort of general support will they get, and what sort of stimulus can be imparted to help them get through this? If they do get some sort of stimulus and the broader municipal industry gets some sort of stimulus kind of through the natural channels, that doesn't increase their borrower costs. That actually bolsters them and makes them a more valuable asset in the long run. So, we're kind of talking, there's a lot of conflicting things happening right now, and how they weather through those challenges is really going to be the key. So I think stimulus is going to be an interesting point for us to watch going forward.